My name is Kathy Cerruti. I'm the school librarian at Cohasset Middle School and the 8th grade research teacher. And today we are hosting the 8th grade Sustainability Showcase. So the Sustainability Showcase happens 3 times a year after each trimester, and this is our last showcase for the year. So this is a pretty expansive research project that teaches students what's called the Big Six research process, teaches them a research process to use in high school.
My name is Sam Soros, and we're looking at understanding fishing. Our topic was basically just about understanding how fishing works and overfishing locally. One interesting thing I learned was that regulations help all fish populations positively in every way.
Hi, I'm Grady Alberti. One thing I learned about my research process was there's so many ways that people are fishing and ways that people are putting restraints on fishing. So there's a huge balance of that going on right now that some people are happy with and some people aren't happy with.
I am Flynn Jansen, and one interesting thing I learned is how much of an impact recreational fishing has on fish populations compared to commercial fishing.
My name is Daisy Mohammed, and the title of our project is Injuries in Youth Sports. And my sub-question is, how can we prevent injuries in youth sports? I think I learned how important nutrition is and to stay hydrated, just kind of take care of your body.
My name's Callahan Stonehouse, and my subtopic was focused on head injuries in youth sports. One interesting thing I learned during my project is that after a concussion, there is a 30-day time period that you have a much greater chance of receiving another concussion.
My name is Thomas Barry, and my sub-question was, what are some common injuries in sports, and what sports are the main contributors? One interesting thing that I learned that just sprained ankles, they don't take that long to fully recover from. I thought they were much more severe, but they can only take a few days to maybe in a week or a couple.
Hi, I'm Libby Morgan. Our project is how can technology be both beneficial and harmful to teenagers? Something that I've learned during my research that I found interesting was just how much technology that we use in our day-to-day lives, especially that can be beneficial to us, like social media and communication with friends.
Hi, I'm Riley Kennedy, and one thing that I found interesting about my research was that so many people get affected by it, and almost all teenagers are struggling.
I'm Thalos Boyer, and what I found most interesting during my research was how much of a distraction technology can be and how easy it is to just pick up a phone and just start scrolling and then get lost.
My name's Ryan Tarn, and we did commercial fishing. One thing I found interesting is how difficult it is to manage fish ecosystems and human ecosystems, because if fishing ecosystems fails, so will human. But if you try and preserve the fish ecosystems, it's gonna be too difficult for the humans ecosystems.
My name's Zach Zolkin. I thought it was really interesting that the commercial fishing industry does not have many new up-and-coming fishermen. They mostly consist of middle or later-aged men, white men, and it could be a struggling industry in the future if not many new commercial fishermen are rising.
My name's John Gordon, and I found it interesting that the prices for gas, ice are really high, and it's getting harder for fishermen to afford all the supplies and stuff that they need to have a good day out fishing and make sustainable amount of money.
Hi, I'm Paige Quinn, and we are handling the topic of climate change. One interesting thing I learned is that 8 out of 10 of the world's largest cities are along the coastline.
I'm Mia Canby, and something that I found interesting about our research is that when doing the research, it says a lot about what's going to happen in the future, so not a lot of people realize what's happening right now, so I think that was pretty interesting.
Hi, my name is Brendan Sullivan, and one thing that I found interesting while researching is that a lot of rising sea levels are a really bad problem right now, but they're going to get a lot worse in the future.
Hi, my name is Teddy Cunningham, and our topic was what has CMS done to be sustainable and has it been effective? One thing I found interesting is that recycling is the fastest way to eliminate waste.
Hi, I'm Delaney LaFond, and one interesting thing that I learned is that one CMS hydration station prevents 50 plastic bottles from being used every day.
My name's Rufus Steele, and I learned that composting is like a really efficient way to get rid of excess food waste.
My name is Everett Harrell, and we chose clean drinking water for our research project. I learned a lot of interesting things. Most interesting is how many different filters there are and how they work and how all the towns handle their water.
My name is Jake Delgado, and one interesting thing I've learned about my research project was that there are certain toxins and diseases that could actually kill you.
My name is Duncan Woodard, and one interesting thing I learned about while doing my project is how much of the world doesn't have access to clean drinking water.
I'm Riley Corbett, and we did renewable energy for our topic. So I researched wind energy, and I found out about floating wind farms, and I thought that it was very interesting that wind farms are located in waters 230 feet deep.
My name is Lila Higgins, and I found it interesting that even though we are a coastal town, that none of the water-powered energy sources would work for our town.
So my name is Maddox Gustafson, and one thing I found interesting is that even, Cohasset Energy, we researched a lot of different energy sources, and we found out that most of them actually wouldn't work, and there's really only one that would work, which is solar energy. And so we tried to fix that with our action plan to try to get other people to use more renewable energy in Cohasset, and I found that was pretty interesting.
My name is Eddie Wyndham, and we are presenting student athletes. And our research question was, how does lifestyle habits affect student athletes? One thing I found interesting about my research is the sheer amount of student athletes that don't reach out for help. If you or someone else is always feeling the need to reach out, don't be afraid to.
Hi, my name is Andrew, and we're focusing on exercise habits in student athletes. That's what I was focused on, more exercise. And one thing that I found interesting during my findings is that there are multiple different types of exercise, not just like weightlifting. There's some for stamina, there's some for coordination, there's some for flexibility.
Hi, I'm JP Schul, and I'm investigating the nutritional aspect of how lifestyle habits affect student athletes. And one thing I found really interesting about my topic is how people are really unaware of the importance of proteins in your diet and how essential they are to muscle recovery and improving as an athlete. As Andrew was saying, there's also several other components that you need to have to create muscle progression, such as lifting weights, running, cardio, all that stuff. But I don't think a lot of people knew, and I found out more about myself how important protein was and how beneficial it can be to help student athletes at our age grow.
My name is Charlie Dawson, and the title of our project is Teen Stress. What are the health consequences of stress, and how can teens cope with it healthfully? In my research, I found many interesting things, like, for example, how the hormones are activated during the stress response leads to all of the bad health consequences, like headaches, diarrhea, all that stuff.
My name is Edward Dippold, and one thing that I found interesting about my research is how by using the stress coping mechanisms that I researched, a teen can become self-sufficient in managing their school stress, home stress, and just like stress in general.
My name is Ella Templeton, and our overall research topic was bees. One thing that I found interesting was how much bees contribute to and how much they actually do for our society, because they do a lot more than just pollination.
My name is Peyton Phillips. The most important takeaway I had was that the varroa mite, which is a parasite, is so tiny, but it has such a big impact on the population of the bees.
My name's Sienna Shabertis, and our topic was how can we prevent injuries in youth? One thing that I found interesting about my research is that the most common thing that happens when you have mental burnout is parents putting too much pressure on you, which leads to mental burnout.
My name is Kaylee McLaughlin, and one thing I found interesting about my research was that CTE is not just found in athletes, but it's found in people that are just in their homes and don't do sports.
My name is Charlie Tabazinski, and my topic was what are the main causes of youth sports injuries. And I learned that certain people are more injury prone than others. And that's important in sports, like in our town, Cohasset, because a lot of people are very competitive when it comes to sports and they sustain injuries.
The wonderful thing is that all of these students, all of these research students did a fabulous job this year. They really got into their projects. They did amazingly in-depth, credible research with books and local experts and databases, and they are ready for high school. And the great part about my job is that I get to help them through senior year. So they're ready for their future high school research projects, and they're ready to have a great summer.